And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Algebra 1, Chapter 4-3, point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This one's a little harder to remember unless you realize where that comes from. Remember the formula for slope. M equals the change in y over the change in x, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If we rearrange this, that means we multiply by the denominator on each side. The denominator cancels out, moves over here. Then I have m, the slope, times the change in x equals the change in y. Then I can rearrange that. Property of equality. So I can flip those around and point-slope form. We just don't have the second y there. The ones we replace in point-slope form are the y1, the m, and the x1. That's what we're going to replace. So working with this, if I have a point and the slope, that's when I would use point-slope form. So I have x and y, and I know m, the slope. So if I want to write an equation in point-slope form for this point with a slope of 4, okay, 4 goes in for m, x, 2 goes in for x, 5 goes in for y, and 4 goes in for m. So, in point-slope form, that's y minus 5 equals 4 times x minus 2. That's the equation in point-slope form. So, if I want to write an equation in point-slope form for a line that passes through the point, 3, negative 2, with a slope of 1/4, then graph the equation. Okay, we're going to plug this in. We have negative 2 for y, 1/4 for the slope m, and negative 3 for x. So here's my equation in point-slope form. To graph that, I'm going to use that point, 3 and negative 2, put that on my graph, and then from there, from this point, I'm going to go up 1/4. There's my second point. Now you can follow that same pattern, up 1/4 in both directions, and make a straight line, but you really only need 2 points to create a straight line. So sometimes you'll be asked to write in slope-intercept form, sometimes in standard form. I'll show you both ways how to do that from point-slope form. So here's point-slope form. To go into slope-intercept form, first thing we want to do is distributive property. So 2 times x and 2 times 4. That would give me 2x plus 8. And then in slope-intercept form, I need to get y by itself. So I'm going to add 3 to each side. And there we go. Y equals 2x plus 11. That's in slope-intercept form. Now if I want to go to standard form from there, I need to bring the x to the other side. So subtract 2x from each side. Then I get negative 2x plus y is equal to 11. Now that's not quite standard form yet, because my first term here can't be negative. So I've got to multiply each side by negative 1, and there we go. This is in standard form. 2x minus y equals negative 11. Remember, you can't have fractions in standard form either. Now, if I have a fraction here, if I want to write this in standard form, I could go through and get rid of this fraction, because we can't have fractions in standard form, by multiplying by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply by 3 to cancel out the denominator here. So I have to do the same thing on both sides. Multiply by 3 on each side. That cancels out the denominator. And then I'm left with negative 2 times x minus y. Now I can do distributive property on each side. And then from there, we want to get the variable terms to the left side. So move the x to one side. And then finally, we want to move the 3 over to the right side. And that is in standard form. So to write this in slope-intercept form, here you have a fraction. In slope-intercept form, you can have fractions, so you could just go ahead and multiply, do distributive property multiply the 3/2 in, and you get 3/2 x plus 3 over 2. Now I want to get rid of the 3 here, so I want to subtract that from each side. But I can't subtract 3/2 minus 3, so I'm going to change that to 3 over 1. Now in order to subtract fractions, you need a common denominator. So we're going to change that to 6 over 2. Now I can subtract that, and I get y equals 3/2 x minus 3/2. Now there's another way you could do that if you don't like working with a fraction up here. You could multiply by the denominator again. And then that's by 2 here. Multiply by the denominator. Do that on each side. And then that cancels out the denominator. Now do distributive property. We get 2y on the left side plus 6 equals 3x plus 3. Now from there, to get into slope-intercept form, remember I need to get the y by itself. So I'm going to move the 6 to the other side. Now we have 2y. At this point I'd have to go back and divide by 2. So I'm kind of undoing what I did over here again. Divide by 2. Remember you have to divide every term by that number. So then we get y equals 3/2 x minus 3/2. And that's about all, folks. Remember to like and subscribe. And we got some crazy people here.